People around the world wonder about what's happening in Syria, not knowing it's really simple. Here is the true story of what happened. In 1970, Hafez al-Assad, the defense minister at the time, launched a coup which brought him to power. Then, he amended the constitution to impose a repressive dictatorial regime on the Syrian people. Hafez al-Assad ruled with an iron fist, suppressed liberties, banned a newspaper, and then committed a massacre in Palmyra prison, killing more than 1,500 of his opponents. After that came the massacre of Hama city in 1982 with a death toll which surpassed 35,000 civilians. In 2000, the dictator died, but his regime survived. His son Bashar succeeded him and walked the same path. In 2004, dozens of Kurds demanding freedom were either killed or injured when Assad suppressed their uprising. In the year 2011, the Arab Spring flourished and the winds of change blew. Then the peaceful uprising broke, demanding liberty and dignity. Assad's security forces targeted the protesters with live ammunition, killing hundreds of them. As a result, the uprising expanded to the rest of the country. Remaining peaceful, protesters carried flowers to express their goodwill and assert legitimacy of their demands. Yet, the Assad regime went further in suppressing. More people were killed, and thousands of young men and women were arrested. Abandoned by the international community and with the death toll rising, the Syrian people turned to arms to protect their peaceful demonstrations. In 2012, a group of officers in the Syrian army defected, and with a large number of activists who joined them, they formed the Free Syrian Army. The FSA liberated several areas from Assad's grip. Liberated areas were met with Assad's atrocities, punishing them for embracing the revolution. The majority of the victims were women and children. Unable to break the Syrians' will himself, Assad called up for his allies, Iran and Hezbollah, to suppress the revolution and crush the FSA. Their atrocities went so far as using internationally prohibited chemical weaponry, inflicting even much more civilian casualties. In 2013, flow of foreign extremists from Iraq and elsewhere began, allegedly to help rebels. Yet, once these extremists entered Syrian territory, they established the Islamic State in Iraq and Levant, forcing rebels out and seizing control of some liberated areas. Raqqa became their stronghold. Meanwhile, Kurdish PYD militias seized the opportunity of the weakness of Assad forces and gained control of further territory in northern Syria, demanding secession and autonomy. As fighting between the various parties continued, Assad continued to rain liberated towns with bombs to punish their civilians. Thousands of barrel bombs were dropped, killing innocent women and children and destroying schools and hospitals. Syrian heroes never gave up, but rather remained determined to resist terror by Assad and ISIS, and remained faithful to the demands of the Syrian people of freedom and dignity. Regional allies were no longer enough to support the Assad regime, so Assad officially sought Russia's assistance. Therefore, rebellious areas became subject to Russian attacks, which destroyed what is left of life in those areas. Assad's pursuit of the policy of indiscriminate attacks, siege, starvation, and forced displacement led to a humanitarian catastrophe, the worst since World War II. Thousands of people have been forced to flee their homes for their lives. Today, the Syrian people are still determined in making their demands of freedom and dignity. Assad and his allies, Russians and Iranians, are still killing and forcing more and more innocent civilians to be displaced. This is the truth. Because of Assad, this is what's happening in Syria, quite simply. Now that you know the truth, spread it.